And we should be good. You guys can't see this now, but on the hand cam, I've got some advertising space down here that we could be selling. So I'll make sure you take a look at that when you guys get a chance. And
Oh,
also,
good. I got a pyramid scheme I want to.
yeah, that's fine too. If you got your money's green, you can get in.
Anyone want some leggings?
This is also I'm now the ambassador to Slow Jamistan, by the way. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. This is original content, by the way, so they can't come after me for copyrighting this music. However, if you would like to buy the Old and the Way jingle, it is for sale, and it can be reused.
I'd like it to be my ringtone.
Yeah, Scott. I talked to Scott. Scott is as I mentioned last week, a talented voiceover artist, everybody, and I need.
The word talented is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, but sure.
Scott is a voiceover artist, and and
You mean that's not Scott? That's not Scott's real voice?
Yeah.
Holy crap! You know,
No
you're
way,
good,
Carlos.
Scott.
This is my real voice.
Actually, I'm gonna call
I
an
just
audible
slide
and
into the song,
derail us
dulcet
immediately.
tones of what's my title? El Jefe de Sonio.
El Jefe do Sonido.
El
Okay,
sonido, say
Sound.
it.
Sonido. I'm practicing. I'm trying to get better. My family is trying to get me to not to say Marvista. What do I say? Marvista, which is the name of my kid's school. It's Vista, not Vista. Anyway, Scott,
right.
we didn't call this out last time. Very very quickly, the beard game's looking strong, buddy.
The beard is driving me nuts.
Okay.
But I'm going to Santa training in less than 1 month.
So what does that mean for the duration that you have to keep this beard?
Well, to be a Santa in this guy's agency, you have to be natural bearded. So I told him.
So the beard ain't going anywhere,
I was
right?
straight with him. I said, I don't think this is the year I'm going to start. Is it okay if I still come to training? Because training is free. I don't want to hold up the spot for somebody else. He said, no, by all means, come to training. So I have to not trim it at all. So it looks like I'm, mentally invested in this training. I don't want to, I don't want to give the wrong image. Had that not been the case, I would have at least trimmed it because these gray hairs are going all over the place. I look somewhat homeless.
What is bothering you about it the most? Is just how you look?
Yeah, but I'm used to that. I've been bothered by how I look for 40 years, but it's just it's very scrappy. I'm not liking it. It doesn't have a clean, neat look. And I went to the pool with my kid this week, which was a whole other piece of nonsense, and I got out and
Chris Hansen leaned out from behind a wall like, hey.
I caught myself in the mirror and I wasn't thrilled with what was going down.
Yeah. All right,
thank you.
I
appreciate that.
Well, I wanted to point it out because I was making some edits from last week's episode, guys, and I noticed how strong Scott's beard was looking, and I thought it was worth pointing out. But we also need some voiceovers for like on the last episode of Old in the Way.
Previously on Old and in the Way.
Yeah, we're going to work on those things too.
Okay,
so, but again, greatly appreciate. Welcome to episode 10. I mean, this is a big time thing that we've actually, I think, congratulations.
Double digits.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of snuck up on me. And today we're doing what we call soft shoulders. And if you've ever been looking for a spot to pull over a motorcycle for whatever reason, and you're looking at desert sand, which is not a good spot to pull into, and a tiny little strip of gravel, that's what a soft shoulder looks like. But we're gonna catch up on some various items and some stories and some things.
It's gonna be really hard to follow up last week's episode.
Oh, it's gonna be. I mean, last week was amazing. It was really incredible having MJ and Jordy. Go back and take a look at episode 9. Thank you, Carlos and Eddie, for connecting us with MJ and Jordy. I really, really appreciate that.
Jay, can I give you a quick story as a follow-up for MJ and Jordy?
Yeah, please.
This will be brief, but and Carlos, I think you're going to appreciate this one. Friday morning, I looked at the weather forecast. It said it was going to snow 2 inches. So as a joke, I said to my wife, I should sleep outside in the backyard in a tent. And she said, you wouldn't last 2 hours out there. So then I had to do it. I didn't have a choice at that point. I've been married for long enough that can't be that. I just can't let that go by. So I slept in the backyard in a tent in a snowstorm. It's the first time in my life I've ever done that. I'm also going to say it's the only time in my life I'm ever going to do that. I don't need to do it again. I don't remember if it was MJ or Jordy who said, you should really have a cot. So I brought a cot out there. It didn't fit in the tent. This is a wee little tent. So I had to put it in on a diagonal like you're measuring a TV. And I didn't have a sleeping bag. So I had a down comforter and a second comforter. And I folded it over and got in it like a taco. And it was pretty fine. It was cold. It was like 21 degrees overnight. What I didn't realize was going to happen, though, was when I need to get up in the morning, I have to get out of that and then run to the back door. And it was much, much colder than I expected. We had also gotten 5 inches of snow, not 2 inches of snow. So, so I was wearing my Crocs, and the snow went into my socks and my pant leg. And needless to say, the tent is still sitting out there. It'll be out there for at least another week at this point. But I was channeling my inner MJ and Jordy on that one, Jay. They were talking about camping. I must have gotten the bug. Well, luckily the bug has left the building, and I'm not going to need to do that again. But,
yeah. Well, winter camping's a little crazy, but
if I had the right equipment, it actually would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But this was a jury rigged operation, and it wasn't that great.
Yeah,
but
I say it all
wife,
seriousness.
All on your honor. Don't mention to her that it wasn't awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure she watches the show, right?
Well, I did speak to Jay and Jordy before they left, and had the opportunity to sort of like a post action report, so to speak, to talk about it, and they were still pumped and stoked and saying, and about the wealth of information that each segment that one can break it down, especially the packing side of it, as they showed us, the what to be efficient on a motorcycle, not knowing that you don't have the biggest saddlebags or the biggest touring type bike. So you got to make do and learn how to pack, repack, unpack, repack it, and know how to do it efficiently and quickly, and have the amount of clothing for it, plus their riding skills that they start. I mean, it's amazing. So there's a wealth of information storage. As a side note, also, I spoke to you, Jay, about this. There's another person that I'm going to work on that I think she's given me a verbally okay. Another guest candidate of a female that used to be riding on her brother's motorcycle, whose nickname, I don't know if I would ride, his nickname was Crash. So I don't know if I would necessarily carry that nom de plume around, but needless to say, Crash and I had gone back for many, many years, and he was taking his sister, and then so from the humble beginnings of her being a passenger on the back of his touring bike, to eventually getting married, moving out, and meeting the man of her dreams, who was an iron butt state to state type traveler, and having thousands, and she had to achieve the Iron Butt award after having at least 3 or 4 accidents that nearly killed her, but still got herself up. And every time I would visit her at the hospital, I said, I know, it wasn't your fault. I got it. I know it wasn't your fault.
Right.
With the pins, and this is a person who eventually found a person to say as crazy as her. So hopefully I get her.
Yeah.
And her nickname. Oh, let me guess. It's Traction. No, that's a brother, but no. Her actual nickname was called Diva. So
cool.
Really cool. So hopefully we got that.
Yeah, so definitely. That's fantastic.
Right.
I would love to have them on, and I definitely would love to have Jordy and MJ back.
And I missed the opportunity. I think I did see yesterday, the other guy that is a legend in his own mind, Postman.
Yeah, that was the other guy you mentioned.
The other guy, he's the only other couple.
Did you ask him?
Well, he was babbling about something, and my attention span with him is about in 3-minute intervals.
Yeah, I understand. This is not like approaching somebody at work. I get that. Like you see people. It's like I've been handing out like cards and stickers on the road, and I was saying to Liz after my last ride, I'm like, there's certain people you encounter that on the road that, or even just it's not that they're bad or anything, but they're just not I wouldn't describe them as approachable. Like they don't want you in their face asking them a question now.
But before, 2 more seconds in there.
Yeah, go ahead.
One interesting story about traveling
is I remember asking him, I said, "You want to go to lunch?" He said, "Sure." And he says, "You want to have crab cakes?" And I'm thinking, someplace, some ocean here,
Oddly
Oceanside,
specific.
like this. He says he wants to go to Maryland. And,
Oh shit!
and I said,
I love
"Now?"
that.
He says, "Yeah, why? What's the problem?" No, I'm not that hungry for crab cakes. That's number one. Number two, I always tell the story about him that I'll never do a long distance trip with him because he has been known to go and fly out or ride out to the middle of nowhere, go in to buy a T-shirt, and come out with a new motorcycle.
No shit.
And
Yeah, I like this guy.
he was able to, despite Eddie, you will like this. He tried to sell his, I'm going to say 30,000, 40,000 miles on his bike to the New York City dealership. And they looked at him, you're talking about a touring bike that's got more miles than most of us would put in any sort of time frame, scratches, you name it. He's hit deer, he's fallen down, you name it. And he's crazy, that guy.
It's got like that cable tie stitch work and the plastic fairing. You guys ever see that in like bumpers where people do it like the staple work with cable ties? I love that.
And he went into the dealership and he tried to get them to buy his used bike. And they said, "Are you freaking nuts? Look at the mileage on this." He said, in his certain accent, "Oh yeah, I don't care. I'm going to go anyway." And he went on his ride. He started going long distance. Well, in the middle of, I was going to say certain expletives, but I was going to say in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
He pops into a Harley dealership in the middle of nowhere to buy, and this is the truth, a T-shirt. And he's going to go buy a T-shirt. And he goes up to the guy and he says, "I got a used bike. Do you want to buy it?" Guy asked him, "How many miles?" He said, "Over 50,000 or 45,000. Somebody, okay. And he said, "Yeah, yeah." And they negotiated. And an hour later, he drove out of that, no matter how many miles on it, he got the price he wanted in the middle of nowhere and rode out and continued his trip on a brand new touring bike on the rest of his journey. So
that's a smart guy.
That's the kind of touring guy we're talking about.
Yeah,
but we'll work on that.
Yeah,
anyway,
sounds like an outstanding guest.
Yeah,
I'm busy that week. All right.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we get him on. And is there something about both of these people that you said last week that's intrigued me? Like it's like a brain worm or an earworm, whatever you call it. So let's make sure that we do that. And
I'll work on them.
I want to very quickly, as a note on I pulled together a highlight reel of Eddie and of MJ and Jordy's episode last week. And I'm not fishing for sympathy when I say this as a caveat. I'm more setting expectations. All of the production, for the most part, is stuff I'm doing myself and self-taught or whatever. So, like interviewing and editing, and I was aware of the fact when we talked to them that we were almost through our time and we barely had scratched the surface on journeying, and it was just, so I got to get better at getting to the heart of the matter faster, but really, we need to have them back because there's a lot to cover. And I went through trying to cull down the 90 minutes we were together into 60 seconds of content. Like, there's so much that I cut out that, and I won't bore you guys too much longer with this, but I set, like, in my workflow when I make a video edit, I set, like, a bar for 60 seconds so I know how long it looks like in the visual video editor. And I have, like, this much, clips that I had cut down from the hour and a half. So, really hope that we can get them back, and I tried to capture as much of it as I could, and we thank them very much. And thank you, Carlos and Eddie, for really for bringing them to the show and making them part of the program. It was awesome. Thank you.
That was sensei.
Yeah, much appreciated. Much appreciated. All right, so we moving on. We got into Newman's camping trip already, so that was one of the key things we need to talk about. Very quick, I want to make an update. I was talking about and considering making a cross-country run in early June because the opportunity and the timing was lining up, and I'm an impulsive person, and it seemed like a good idea. So I was going to give that a shot. However, I ultimately concluded last week not to do it, and it took me a little bit of time to come around in this. I am still going east in June, however, but the closest, the shortest that I could get it down to in a reasonable, like not trying to go more than 300 miles in a day, we'll say, was allowing for some stretches where I know I could do a little bit more in the middle of the
Jay, are you
country.
are you tapping something
Sorry,
on
yeah,
your
I am.
desk?
I'm nervously
For God's
tapping a
sakes,
pen.
put it in the drawer.
Sorry about that. My bad.
Go ahead.
So good call. Thank you for that.
That's what I'm here
So
for.
I decided to, I couldn't get it down under 7 days, and I have 2 weeks of time, but it would have been basically, I would have had to ride 7 days straight, turn around, ride back, and it just seemed like a bad idea. My bike technically, and a lot of the advice that I got in talking to people, all seem to indicate that you can make the ride. It's nothing wrong. Your bike is, I have a 1200. I've got it pimped out with good bags and all that kind of stuff, and I've got custom suspension and a lot of the things that people complain about with Sportsters. I've fixed on my bike, if you want to say that, but it's still a long ride. Plus, it just seemed like trying to do something a little bit too much too soon. So I decided to not try to force it in at that time and fly east and visit my family. So that led me to the next thing, which was, well, let me see about renting a bike. And when I started to plan this trip, I actually considered renting a bike first and thinking like, well, let me take all the time in the world. I'll rent a big touring bike and I'll ride. I'll make it 3 weeks and whatever. That's wicked expensive. So, and what I found, and let me stop there for a second. Have any of you ever rented a bike before?
No. Yes. Yes, Eagle Rider is usually is the first one that comes to mind because they're the up until I have to you taught this old graybeard a few tricks with when you talked about renting a bike.
Yeah.
Now, to those of us in the riding community, you're going to the Keys. Well, you might as well rent. You go and stop in Miami, pick up an Eagle Rider bike, and you ride all the way down to the Keys. I was thinking about doing it when I was in South Dakota, doing the same thing when I met my friend in Colorado. But he lent me the bike. So Eagle Rider was up until you educated me that they have an alternative. And to your point, Eagle Rider is very expensive when you don't have anything else to think about until you open my eyes that there are options.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Yeah, and I think this is something. So get your pens and pads out, kids. I think this is something that we can offer our community here. That's actually really useful knowledge. So,
Jay, can you tell me what really expensive is? Can you give me?
Yeah, I'm going to walk you through that. So,
all right, great.
Yeah,
thanks.
so when I did this, I went to. I'm a big fan of I don't get paid or anything, but so free plug for hdforums.com. It's a Harley Davidson forum. It's massively crowded with people. I can't speak to it beyond that, other than because there's a lot of people there. You get a lot of good information. It's very active. So I posted a thread there to start with to say, I'm planning on making this trip. Tell me your experiences, good, bad, or another, with renting bikes. And fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of the advice in that trip was your Sportster looks fine, just go for it. But what I found about renting a bike, if you're thinking about it, here's the summary, the TLDR, and then I'll get into the cost, Scott, and some of the details. Eagle Rider is, if you're talking about North America or the U.S., Eagle Rider is the biggest show in town. They were at one time a part of Harley Davidson, and they were divested at some time. I'm fairly certain this is accurate, but they are their own company now. So they are the biggest deal in town. Most of the people I talked to that said they had rented from Eagle Rider, all of them said it was very expensive. Some of them said it was convenient, especially like in the scenarios Carlos mentioned. You're going to Hawaii or the Keys. You're going to be in and out in a day. You want to rent a bike or something like that. It's cost effective and it's convenient. So all of them said it was expensive. Some of them said it was convenient. Many of them said maintenance was an issue, and by that they said, and Eagle Rider, whatever. Anyway, their testimony was that brake pads were worn down to nothing. Obvious kind of wear and tear. And it dawned on me, in the process of learning all of this from people, here's where I go, I don't know anything about renting motorcycles, but I traveled full time as a consultant for many years. And I was on the road, 40 weeks a year renting cars all over the country. And let me tell you, I beat the ever living shit out of those things. I can have little flashbacks of like, there's places around like parking lots and, with other consultants I were after work, in some middle of nowhere, you're killing time doing donuts in a Toyota Corolla or whatever. But anyway, so I know how rental cars are treated. So, so I guess I would expect riders to be better, but motorcycles get beat up. Carlos, when you rented from Eagle Rider, do you remember any issues with the bike? What was your experience?
No, you know
maintenance-wise?
what? The three times that I rented, both of the times I had rented where well, first of all, number one, I agree with you. It's to me it while it was expensive, the concept of it being convenience, even though expensive, I was willing to get the convenience of it because, like I said, arriving in
Yeah,
Miami with the family, I remember we going down to the Keys, did that several times. And what happened is it is convenient. The bike, the Road King that I had was in good shape. Was I didn't find mechanical issues, but then again, you're not really challenging this bike to any degree. There's
yeah,
no hills
yeah,
from Miami to Key West.
yeah.
You're not really having to dress and carry a lot of clothing, etc. And really, it's really a nice. So
Your
was it
biggest enemy is
expensive?
salt.
Yeah, that's it, and it was in good shape. As far as that,
How much is
the
it? Like, what's expensive?
All right, so yeah, I'll cut to the chase very quickly. You're talking if you want to rent a Road Glide, Street Glide, something in that, anything above a Heritage Softail, or say, you're talking about $200 a day, and that is before you pay for. And it's important to note, Eagle Rider, like other programs, has a membership thing where you pay some kind of a cost, and you get
annual, yeah.
yeah, and you get what it does is you accrue credits, like kind of like Audible, which you can then use to, like if you want to rent a Road Glide in, the Keys, it's 3 credits a day this month or something like that to do it. So there is a
Hmm.
subscription rate that reduces the daily rate. But if you're Joe Average and you go look right now, and especially considering it is summer and this is relevant, you're going to see, it's $200 a day to rent the bike. It's $20 a day because it's peak season. It's $100, and this was for my trip in June. It's $100 a day because it's bike week. Doesn't matter, if any. And this is renting from New Jersey too, by the way. So I would expect that like in Boston, but renting from anywhere. It's bike week in Laconia, so they want to whack you for $100 a day. So for me, pricing it out, looking at renting a bike for 5 or 6 days, I got to pay $600, $500, $400 just because it's June and there's
Yeah,
bike week happening.
yeah. It's that's a very expensive ride
Plus, and
because
that's I'm not even getting into the maintenance. So like it would
right,
have been like close to $2,000 for me to rent
yeah. It
a
went
Heritage Softail for 5 days.
for the Road King. I remember up to years ago.
I
I
could
mean
buy
that the
one for
fact
that
that
much.
well, I was still at that time. It was, remember, the smaller the engine, the cheaper the price. The
Yeah,
larger the engine, it's going to be equivalent. So there's that scale. So if you could, I can give you an example. I ride a trike now, but at the time I was thinking of like renting a trike when I was in San Diego, et cetera, blah blah. My
just to
buddy said, "No, I
experiment. Yeah,
haven't," and that to rent the trike was over $300 a day.
yeah.
And I said, you know what, you're right. But the scale of that of 115, I was under $200, 180, 100, under $200 a day. And I said, all right, I'll budget for that. It's not great. But I wasn't knocked at what you're describing as
Yeah,
I wasn't going through Daytona week. I wasn't going through Laconia week. I
yeah,
wasn't going through anniversary of Milwaukee week, or Myrtle Beach week, or
yeah.
any of those.
But the thing is,
So
I have a feeling like I know. Again, I don't know very much about motorcycle renting other than the great info that I've learned that we're sharing here, which is it's expensive. There are a lot of built-in fees, and this is I can say this from a customer service standpoint. When I go and buy certain products that where I know there are taxes and charges built in. They're like, whether it's Amazon or something, like you look and you see the price. This is what you pay up front. That's what I like. I don't want to see it's $200 a day only to find out it's really $600 a day when you do the math. That's bullshit. And somebody somewhere in their finance department, they know what you're doing. They're luring you in, and then so that's my opinion on the quality of their experience. If you're going to go and rent from Eagle Rider, and that's how I felt. I felt like
I can tell you about the maintenance though. There were two shops, and one shop I remember closed down, and they used to have again the availability,
Yeah.
for that. I mean, it depends on
Do you know
don't
why they
have the
closed down?
opportunity. I think that they had too many other side business. They were running scooters.
Oh
They were
yeah, like
running
yeah.
mopeds. They were running everything in
That's
the
another thing
kitchen
that would
sink.
make you wary too. Like if you walk in and you're like, "Yeah, I want to rent a motorcycle," the guy's like, "Yeah, I got you set up right here. Hey, you got solar panels on your house?" You're like, "Wait a second," like I just this is, but
Yeah.
so
And the availability when you want to go,
yeah.
because you may want that heritage softail, and
And
when
they
it's
don't
a
guarantee
small
you that. They don't
immaterial-
guarantee it to you
right.
either. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
So
You don't know if you're going to have it. So
that's correct. That's
yeah.
correct.
So I again, I think if you need it and you've got the money and the convenience today, there's probably plenty of good use cases. So I'm not meaning to besmirch Eagle Rider, but it didn't meet my max. And from a opinion standpoint, put your price on Front Street. Don't make me wade through. And then you want to whack me for $1,000 on my credit card too, just so you can hold it. That like,
What?
yeah, like that. It just felt like too much. And then I'm sitting there thinking like, I'm not gonna, for the price I'm gonna spend here, I could buy a motorcycle. So, again, majority of people that I have spoken with in my non-scientific research that suggested the Eagle Rider is expensive, convenient, and some of the maintenance was questionable. And there was a lot of input on the maintenance. And the moral of the story is, if you're going to ride around town in Key West, like Carlos said, and it's flat or something like that, you probably don't care, if you're grinding metal on metal brake pads or whatever. But if you're going to be riding cross country or doing anything serious where you're putting your life in somebody else's hands, and it's different than a car. So that's the moral of the story. And what I did learn was many folks suggested looking at rider share sites and programs, which is like Airbnb for motorcycles. And the benefits of which are that there's much more to choose from. It's significantly less expensive than Eagle Rider, and you're crowdsourcing your ride in the sense that if you rent a shitty bike to somebody, it's going to show up. So the bikes that you choose from, you rise to the top by being a power renter, by having good quality bikes. And one of the things I liked, for example, immediately when I started to go down that rabbit hole, was I looked at a bike and I looked at the first review, and it talked about like how nice the person was and they drove the bike, just really great stuff. And that was like, this is what I wanted to see. So crowdsourced info. And I ultimately ended up going, there's a site, Riders Share, that I looked at first. And then I ended up going through Twisted Road. And I'll come back to the reason why I chose Twisted Road. But I'm renting, so to bring the story to a close, or at least this chapter of the story, I am renting a Sportster 1200 Low from a woman in West Orange. It's a beautiful bike. She's got a lot of add-ons and seat options. It is. I'm gonna fly in on. I think I take a red eye. I did this on purpose, so it's a little cheaper. I take a red eye Wednesday night from California, so that I land in Newark, New Jersey, 6:30 a.m. on Thursday. I pick up the bike at 9, and the world is mine from there. So we'll.
Wow.
That's the latest update.
Eddie, I think this is an excellent opportunity for your New Jersey crew chapter to welcome him to Newark.
Like, I just came from Jersey last night. Well, let's connect.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Maybe you know what? I'm just thinking about that. My mom
there with them yesterday.
I should leave from my mom's place in Plainfield and start on that Wednesday morning. I should say, stay there Wednesday morning so I can meet you. I have to think about that. Yeah, dating you on a Thursday morning.
I definitely would love to come meet you.
Yeah, for everybody on the East Coast, we're finalizing our. I have to see family, and my family. My parents are in Connecticut, and my extended family is down to between Connecticut and New York, New Jersey, that area. So now that we know, we just booked all this week. So now we're filling in like the days, like where are we going to be? But I'm hoping, yeah, definitely
When
want to
is
see you
this?
guys. It's June 7th through the 13th. I'm going to be out there, or the 8th through the 13th.
Right after the Babes Ride Out, I guess.
I think so. Yeah, I think you said that was around Memorial Day, something like that. Yeah.
Are you talking about our Bikers Against Breast Cancer?
Yeah.
Or
no, it's Babes Ride Out in Narrowsburg.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I can't remember
because
I think it's
yeah, June. I see you got the 4th is a Sunday month. So you're talking about June. You said June 7th.
Yeah, June 7th. Is that a Thursday or Wednesday?
That's a Wednesday. So
yeah.
That's a Wednesday. You're arriving that morning.
Well, actually, it's the morning of Thursday, the 8th. I arrive. I fly out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's Wednesday, 7th and 8th. I see. The 7th you arrive, and 8th you start hitting the road and enjoying the New Jersey Turnpike. The smells of the factories, excellent.
I can't wait. You guys don't understand.
Welcome to New Jersey, there, buddy.
I miss it, man.
Bring
I really
your
do.
closed helmet.
I do. I got it. I have it. Getting my gear together. I do have some questions about that. Some summer in riding gear. So I'll get those together, organized in the list. But I really appreciate all the advice and the guidance that you guys have given me. It ranging from go for it to this is too much too soon. I love, good, bad, or indifferent. A lot of it bad. 20 plus years, 25 years in corporate America, I've been forced to learn how to give and receive feedback. So, I do appreciate hearing it. And it's been, and I also like kind of having this experience with you guys as we go. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody on the East Coast, and we'll get some information on when we can do that. And this bike, I'll send you pictures of the bike. It's beautiful. So I
am curious, when going back to when you do share that link about the folks there, because like I said, I think I never explored an alternate option to the expensive
I'll
Eagle
post
Rider.
them. And for everybody, I don't mind sharing with you guys. So the real quick, I should have put this in earlier. So when you go, I went through Twisted Road, and you get a price per day for the bike, which you pay, and then what goes on top of that are basically like some local tax stuff, things you'd expect. There's an option. I chose an option to add a supplemental $25 a day insurance policy. So this is just like if something happens, I have insurance, but this is an added thing, and I know that's an extra expense, but because I worked for 25 years in the insurance business, you just have to trust me on this one. Don't buy an extended warranty on your phone when you buy it at Staples, but do buy extended warranties on cheap things like this. So I bought the $25 a day extra insurance, and I think all in it came to, so this is out the door. I owe nothing else after this, $692 all in. So that's renting it from Thursday, and I bring the bike back Monday afternoon. Or Tuesday afternoon.
What are you talking? How many days you got? You actually use it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Monday. 5 days. It's a 5-day rental.
5 days for $600.
Yeah, $692. Yeah,
it's a good deal.
Yeah, and it's not cheap. I know that. I'm aware of that. It's not cheap. Period. But this is not something
that's a good deal. What year you said the ride is?
It's a 2009, 2009 Sportster 1200 low.
How many miles?
Under 20, I think. Really pretty red paint, candy.
Driven by a little old lady from Pasadena. Yeah,
no.
She used to.
No. This is. I'll have to send the. Actually, I'm kind of like this is at the risk of sounding stalkerish or creepy, cringy here. That's not my intention. But I looked through the bike, and this person, it has many photos of themselves with their bike. So like now I'm intrigued. Like I kind of want to know what's going on in your life. So I want to ask her if she'll, after we meet, and assuming things go well, I may ask her to come on the program and say, what's it like renting your bike? You meet people, and so that could be a potential guest for the future.
Yeah. And it's going to be a lot easier to rent than drive that 3,000 miles cross country.
Yeah, I'm still going to do it. It's just not going to be, it's not going to be this June, I guess. And
it's when you upgrade there, Jay. When you upgrade to that touring ride, then, that's when That's it. It's calling you, not just yet, but it's calling you.
Yeah, there's like, there's a certain, I want to do that, but I also, there's a my Sportster is the bike that I have now, and I don't know when my next bike is going to be coming, and if it's going to be today or tomorrow or 2 years or 10 years. And the life, like the time I have is now too, and I'm not, this is like heavy thinking kind of stuff, but it's relevant because actually I was about to say this is, moving into the next into the am I an asshole segment. I am
Scott, what do you say to that?
well, hold on. Let me finish the thought. So the thought is that I don't know. I love the saying. The song lyric. Enjoy yourself. It's later than you think. So I don't think that you should go out and live crazily and rob banks. But I think if you have the time to do stuff, do it, because I mentioned I worked in the insurance business. That was retirement services specifically. Here's what I learned about after working in retirement business for 25 years. Spend your money now. Don't wait because there's no guarantee you're going to have a chance to spend it later. And all you're doing is giving it to somebody else in the meantime. So enjoy your life while you have it. But I'm to that end, part of me wanted to do it on a Sportster because plenty of people have done it on a Sportster. And it's not like I want to climb Everest with no air just to prove that I can do it. It's something that's fairly reasonable that lots of people have done. And, I wanted to do it, and I still want to do it. So it's just not going to be.
I'm with you on that, though.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be June.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, this is not like bad news. This is good news, or not bad or good news. But my job is very volatile. I work for a startup, so there's a possibility, at any given moment that I could be really busy, or there's a possibility that I could be working on my resume. So if that were the case, in the near term future, and that happened to coincide with June, then how often do you have a chance when it's like I can take 3 weeks off of work or 4 weeks off of work and not have to deal with it? What I do, I can be a contractor, so I can say, like, if my job were to end tomorrow, I can say, all right, I don't want to start a new job until June, whatever. So that was why, like, a lot of the things, except for my experience and the bike, were really lining up. And I can mitigate some risks, but you guys don't want to hear me talk about insurance risk mitigation. So it's still going to happen. We just don't know when. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna turn hard segue there. My bad, but we're gonna turn transition to
smooth.
it. You guys, is everybody familiar with the concept of am I an asshole? I asked this before.
No, I was waiting for Scott to offer his opinion about that, about you.
So
you indeed are the asshole.
I think this is I stole the idea from Reddit, and it's basically a person describes a scenario, and then the crowd tells them whether or not they're the asshole, and that's what I'm asking you guys to do. And I am asking you guys to be candid and honest. So I'll explain quickly the background, and please ask questions as I go. You don't have to hold your questions, but I'm going to give you the run up. And then you guys can tell me whether or not I'm the asshole. And I think this is, maybe something we can call it something else. But I like these kinds of things where you guys, we can bring our experiences in the world and kind of talk about what happened. And so I'm going to make myself vulnerable and go first. So the am I the asshole that I'm going to do today is about group riding. And it has to do with an experience I had a few weeks ago. And where I'm going to tell you the end of the story first, in that I decided, not through some dramatic event, very professionally and politely, that I'm not going to be riding with a group that I started riding with last year any longer, because I feel unsafe riding with them, I would say, would be the headline. And I can explain and there's some other things too, that, organizationally, that I would say I feel unsafe physically, but also unsafe in that I don't have confidence kind of in how things are being run. And you could fill a room with what I don't know about motorcycles, but I'm pretty fucking smart when it comes to operations and management and stuff like that. And I know what good looks like and what bad looks like. So that's the overview. I started riding with this group last year. I'm not going to name the group. It doesn't matter. And I want to say every person I met and rode with there was fantastic and nice and welcoming. It's none at all a reflection on the people. With maybe one or two exceptions, like you're going to find in any group, everybody was great. But
how many's in the group? Normal.
This is a worldwide organization, so this is a local chapter. I don't know the total membership of the San Diego chapter, but I would say at most events you would have anywhere from 10 to 20 people.
And the day you rode with them for this event was how many?
Probably 15 bikes, 12 to 15 bikes, I'd say.
Okay.
And I can actually go back and count, but I still have the video. But well attended. And part of the reason why I chose this group is they're a nationwide, worldwide organization. They are all bikes welcome. They are no dues charged. They are family friendly. They are very, very kind of down the middle of the road. And without touching off another discussion, many motorcycle groups tend to be very they tend to be very aligned with certain like lifestyles or ideologies or things like that. And I'm not a veteran. I'm not a cop. I don't want to. So there's only certain options where it's like I can feel like I'm, I want to feel like I'm around people that are just people. And this was a group I looked at. They're on Meetup, which we've talked about before. Very active, lots of stuff happening. So they had all the trappings, and I would still recommend people ride with this group. It was a great organization overall, like experience from the outside looking in. We'll say well organized. So I waded in. I got to know the group, and I did my first ride. And this is important. I did my first ride, and I was out to Borrego Springs and back, and you can watch me a video of it, and I've talked about it before. But this was going to be my first group ride. I set out to have this experience, and before I did it, I reached out to the ride captain and president through multiple mediums: email, Facebook, the website that the group uses, and said, "I am a new rider. I've been riding for a few years. I'm on a newer bike, Sportster that I switched to. I am not a fast rider by nature, blah, blah. And this is all my experience." So I tried to make this person aware of, and I, did all my research. What's my job in a group ride? What am I supposed to do? So I told everybody all these things like you're supposed to let everybody know. We talked about, at the ride meeting that I repeated all of these same things. I stood in a circle with these guys and said, I am a new rider. I have a 5-speed Sportster. I don't like going over 75, 80 miles an hour to begin with. So, that's slow. That's where my speed is. And they knew all of these things. And then the minute we got on the highway, these fucking guys were gone. I mean, just.
Oh.
And most of these guys, there's only one other guy who rides a Sportster. And on that day, that was a tail gunner.
Oh, man.
And, so the tail gunner, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, rides in the back, and he's got to stay with me. He can't, go ahead of me. And so we lose the pack almost immediately as soon as we get on the highway, which is the 8, and we're driving out to where we're going to ride into the desert to do this long ride. So basically, I'm lost from the pack the minute we start. We get off the highway, I'm freezing my ass off. We've talked about all that experience before. Anyway, long story short, we went through I can fast forward in this ride to say the rest of the ride was like that. It was, we went hard into the desert, into these great roads to ride out here, but they're hard twisties, and these guys were, again, gone. So the minute, after we go through the first few sets of turns, they're gone. So basically, I spend the entire ride, keeping the tail gunner from having fun, and riding behind me. And he is an amazing guy who is, I think, also, he was happy to go. He was a stand-up guy and didn't complain or show an ounce of frustration ever. And I'll kind of fast forward, keep moving here. I don't want to, you guys are starting to get the point. I had a few more rides that went very similar to this, and it got to the point where it's like, all I'm doing is going out. Like, it's not enjoyable for me. And I feel like this is a me thing, right? It's not them. I ride slow. I'm a pensive, person, and I don't want to be a liability to this group. So I started to avoid going to events that were going to be any long highway rides or twisties and things like that, and only going to like the bike nights or closer rides or charity runs and things where I knew we were going to be, I wouldn't get lost from the pack. or ignored. That's the way I'd been riding for a while, and then I'll fast forward to a few weeks ago. Let me stop before I've been yammering for a bit. Any questions so far? You guys follow me?
Jay, at this point, they have all to blame, and you did all the right things as any writer, letting them know it's bad on them that they are so into themselves. So far you're not an asshole.
Yeah, so
despite what Scott's saying,
yeah, and I definitely if you watch. I spend too much time watching TikTok, and Instagram reels, and there's lots of really funny stuff that picks on Sportster riders, the different riders in a group. There's guys that do these series, and look, I'm not riding with you guys again if you won't stop making fun of me. I can't keep up, and I'm that guy. I totally buy into that. I'll own it and wear it. So anyway, a couple weeks ago. This is after my Vegas trip. There's a ride. It's going to be on Saturday. It was Easter weekend because Easter's on a Sunday. So everybody says, let's do a ride on Saturday. We're going to meet at this Denny's. We're going to ride to this charity event. And then we're going to do a little backcountry ride to another charity event. And then, back for lunch or whatever. So we meet at Denny's. We don't, the ride captain and president kind of jokes about not doing a meeting because we're only riding 7 miles away to this other place, and everybody kind of BS's and bullshits or whatever, and gets on their bikes and pulls out. So on the one hand, we probably didn't need to talk a lot. We were really only going 7 or 8 miles. On the other hand, we didn't talk. We didn't make any kind of coordinated plan. We just rode out in formation like you would, staggered formation. So what I know about staggered formation, obviously you stay on your side, your position, and off we go. We get on the highway, and almost immediately, and I have all of this on video, almost immediately there's a lot of traffic, so we get split up, and there's people changing lanes and shit like that. So I'm doing my level best, and I've got maybe 5 or 6 guys behind me that I'm aware of. I'm doing my level best to try to get us to catch up to the pack, right, after somebody cuts between us or whatever. And I know why you stay together as a pack, so shit like that doesn't happen. But when you're flying on the highway and everybody's getting on, there's only so much I can do when somebody in a Prius suicides between us, right? So we keep doing that. We catch up. And I'm noticing that's tough traffic, but I'm staying with the pack. We start to slow down again, and this was one thing I noticed, and it doesn't look like at all scary on the video, which I tried to see if I could justify the way I felt. But we're in traffic and we're going slow, and it starts to break up, and there's probably 8 to 10 bikes in front of me, or I forget how many, but there's a bunch of bikes in front of me, and I can see the traffic start to move, and you know how you can hear the roar kind of come back as everybody starts to punch it and go, and I just hear these guys roar. But I can also see brake lights in front of them.
Oh,
so I'm going, I'm starting to go. I got to go. Everybody's coming on me, to try to stay with these guys. It can't get separated. And I don't like riding 2 lengths or 1 length behind somebody in staggered formation if I don't trust you, And this guy, they all take off, and sure as shit, I can see the brake lights. Everybody slams, and everybody has to stack up. I felt like I screeched one of my tires braking. I went back and watched the video. I guess I didn't. Anyway, but my heart was pumping, and I was like, what the fuck is, there's a guy up there leading us, and maybe I'm the asshole, but I'm like, why would you I yell at my wife for this kind of shit in the car, why are you stopping on the gas? You got to stop in 20 feet, just fucking, anyway. So we get to where we're going, and I let it slide, whatever. We get to where we're going. A little bit later, one of the guys in the club, who's a very nice guy, I'm walking by, grabs me, pulls me aside. He's already pulled aside another younger guy in the club. Now, when I say younger, I'm 46, right? So in motorcycle years, I'm young. But it pulls aside another younger guy, and he's got the 2 of us there, and he proceeds to tell us, to start talking about how, and I should have mentioned this, at one point when I got off the highway, there's a guy in my side on the left, where I should be in a staggered formation. And Scott, for your benefit, you're always offset like this. So sure. The guy in front of me is in my lane. So I'm like, all right, I move over because I'm not going to double up behind him. This guy pulls me aside and proceeds to lecture me about why that maneuver was wrong and everything else I did on the highway was wrong or something like that. And I let him talk.
Was it wrong in his estimation?
Yeah, he's telling me why everything.
Why was it wrong?
Well,
he Dagger. That's what he was complaining about.
Yeah,
right?
that I should have stayed on. I should have been on my side.
And I could tell you, like, I haven't ridden in formal group ridings, right? I've ridden with friends, anywhere from 3 to 15 guys. And the one thing you're going to learn quick when you ride in a group is that there are people that drift left and right in the lane for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Like somebody in front of you doesn't like riding next to the guardrail.
Right.
So so they drove it to the left, and now you're behind him.
Right.
So you're constantly shifting back and forth because this guy is moving back and forth.
Right.
You know, oh, there's some potholes in this lane. He moves over. So sometimes if you know that person does it a lot, you can stay where you are. Everybody else will stay where you are, and this guy is just going to keep moving. Because depending on how many people are behind you, you're all going to be doing this every time the guy in front of you doesn't feel comfortable in that side of the road.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
it was bizarre, and I couldn't fully comprehend what he was telling me I did wrong. I just got that he was telling me that I got the part about, like, you're pulled up behind this guy and you should have been, he was on the left, you were on the left. And he mentioned something about like changing lanes on the highway where I should have stayed in the lane. And so a couple important notes. So yes, I wasn't fully understanding what he was trying to explain. And the reason why I'm telling you that is as he started to explain to me, like, I'm not, I'm not a kid, like if you want to tell me something or give me some advice or let's talk about it, but don't just start spewing shit at me. Like after 2 or 3 things this guy said, like I'm thinking about what I'm doing tonight, or like actually I was thinking about punching him.
Yeah.
But what I heard that I got the point that he was lecturing me about what I did. And while he was doing that, the other guy that he had pulled aside was doing like this. He was just kind of, and I had met this guy a week before at another bike week, and I didn't even know he was in our club. But the other guy's listening to him, and he's going, but he was just trying to stay with the pack. Like we were all just trying to stay with the pack. Like you always tell us, stay with the pack, don't get separate. Like, and he kept interjecting, like. So I'm listening to the guy, and it was one of those personal moments, and maybe I'm the asshole. But while this guy's lecturing me, I'm thinking about, I had enough time and presence of mind to be like, I'm going to let this guy finish, and then I'm going to take out a week's worth of work rage on this guy. So he finished, he kind of started to, or he didn't finish. Eventually I just said, look, you're wasting your fucking time. I said, I get that there are rules and there are riding rules. I said, I moved to the right because the guy was in front of me. What was I supposed to do? Line up behind him? The guy was in front of me, so I moved over. That's it. As far as the other stuff, I can't go on a ride without hearing, you gotta stay with the pack, gotta stay with the pack. So I tried to stay with the pack. I said, and we started to kind of jab back and forth a little bit, and I went on to explain, and not in this particular order, that I have gone to great lengths to try to understand what my role is and what I'm supposed to do when I go out in a group ride. And on every single ride that I've gone on with this group, everybody in the leadership, and I was standing next to the ride captains and the sergeant, I said, as soon as we go on a ride, all of these guys go and do whatever the fuck they want in every fucking direction you can possibly imagine. And I used liberal F-bombs. I went up one side of this guy and down the other side. And I said what I said to you guys before, that I don't know the first fucking thing about motorcycle group riding, but I know about operations and how to run a team and leadership. And leadership isn't just going off and doing whatever the fuck you want while everybody's, straggling around behind you. And I talked about, and I had this shit waiting in the chamber, obviously, and I went on to explain that, do you know, and I pointed out, and again, I'm getting myself worked out, but I very clearly and very articulately point out the fact that the club does not follow its own rules. That as a new rider, I should have been positioned at the front of the pack. These are the things none of these things have happened. And at this point, and there's a couple other remaining good points. Now, during the ride, and I'm telling you this now because I didn't realize it until the guy mentioned it to me. At one point on the highway, one of the guys in the club just flew by us. I saw him just buzz by me in another lane, like he left formation and just took off. Now, I assume this is some special tactic that, if you're the sergeant at arms or something, I don't know what this guy's doing. And I also had never ridden with that particular guy, but I did notice everybody that walked up to him kind of greeted him like, he was a bit of a wingnut. So anyway, he was the guy that was in front of me in my spot when we got up at the end of the highway. So now, fast forward again. Now I'm arguing with this guy, and I'm not being too much of a dick, but I'm basically, I'm telling him, I'm not, stop. I don't want to hear your, your input here any longer. I don't think you guys are following your own rules. Another club member arrives, and he kind of sticks his head in and says, well, yeah, you guys should have just been staying with the pack. Why, if there was somebody in his spot, what would you expect him to do? Again, like saying I did the right thing. And that's when finally the guy who's lecturing me goes, well, Bill, drove out and passed 4 people, and he did all this other stuff. So, Bill did this, Bill did that. And I've gone long on this story. The moral of the Bill factor was, the leaders in the club don't follow the rules. There was another guy riding around like an asshole, and this guy who lectured me is too much of a chicken shit to talk to the older guys in the club and tell them, like, this is what you're doing, because all we're doing is following them. So I know, and again, I might be the asshole, but I know what it's like when somebody is like, all right, I'm going to take out I need to tell somebody they're not doing it right fucking energy on somebody. And he pulled 2 people aside he thought he could lecture. And that was at that moment when I thought to myself, I rode 850 miles and didn't have this kind of a scare. I rode 7 miles with these guys. I thought I was going to fucking crash. So I got my shit and got on my bike and left, and that was it.
What happens sometimes, you ride with a group of people that ride together all the time, and they're all accustomed to each other.
Right.
And they forget everything else. Anybody else is not accustomed to them.
Yeah.
So a lot of, like, I've ridden with a lot of groups, on Meetup and stuff like that. And usually, they don't have like tail gunners, but I'll be like, you know what, I'll hang in the back. Or if the guys in the tail gunner say, I'll ride with you guys, and I'll tell them, like, listen, if for some reason I'm gonna cut you loose, I'll wave you up, tell you to pass me, and I'm good, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to stay with me. I don't want you to stay with me.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? If for some reason I feel like you're that bad, then I'm just not going to follow you.
Right.
I do that with other things, like hiking. The same thing. It's like, well, we don't leave anybody behind. I said, I appreciate that, and I do the same thing. But if I tell you to leave me, you're not leaving me behind. You're just doing what I want you to do.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to cut you loose, and I'll find my way home. I'm not lost.
Yeah.
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 I've usually finished the rides. I very rarely have not finished them, but there are many times like you guys, I'm not riding with you again.
Yeah, I was fortunate that this was, and there's I'll wrap this up, and I want to hear your verdicts, but a couple last comments. There are this San Diego chapter of this club. Most of the people in the club and the events take place way outside of San Diego. They're East County San Diego. And without getting into a social political debate, East County, Beach San Diego, and East County San Diego are 2 very different geographical regions. So to be objective, I've got to drive 45 minutes usually before I even see the club and get to a ride. And most things take place, way the hell out in East Jesus. So it's not, it's not a great fit for me in that regard. I very politely and professionally, I waited a couple weeks. I didn't make a scene when I left, by the way, and I was fortunate that this thing was like a ride, like locally, so I could, you could kind of drift in and out, and it wasn't a big deal. And I just slipped out that day because I didn't feel like, I wanted to ride with them anymore. And I've been feeling uncomfortable about it, and I could hear the words of, some of you guys saying, some of these groups, no matter how well organized or whatever they may look, you get out on a ride, you can learn that some of these people don't know what you're doing, and they can get you, get you hurt. And I just trusted my instinct on that regard and said, I'll be done. But I very politely reached out to the club president and said, thank you very much. It's not riding with the group's not a great fit for me or whatever I said, and wish you all the best, and hope to see you out there in the road, and that's that. But so that was how I ended it with the situation. I was very upfront and telling the folks, trying to talk to people about, here's, I don't want to be a pain in the ass. I want to be the one, like you were saying, Mike, I don't want to hold people back. And the group was very insistent on staying together, and they are people who have ridden together for years and all know each other. So in defense of the group, I think, and I tried to point this out, that like you guys all, it's all second nature. You guys think and talk alike and know each other. You got to recognize you got somebody new here that's not part of the herd, and and help accommodate. And I don't think that's too much to ask, and especially not when I'm being self-effacing and like, hey, help me figure this out. So I do think that was a little, I know what like haphazard, kind of weird, and the president is a fantastically nice and wonderful guy. But I don't think I don't think he was much of a leader in the forum. Like I didn't feel like he had my safety in his. It was something he was thinking about, and I know what that looks like. So, anyhow, that's
there's also a fine line between keeping the group tight and being too tight. There are guys like, oh, you got to be tight, and yeah, all right, we're going to be tight, but I don't need to be 6 inches off the back of your butt.
Yeah, one of the guys. This is a big.
I don't want him to react to something, and I don't want you 6 inches off my back, because I mean, and you hear it a lot of times. There was a group of bikes, and 5 bikes were involved in an accident, and it's because they were so tight on each other that when something happened, the floor in the back crashed up on the guy that had the accident.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be so far back that you leave a huge gap and people drift in.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a common sense thing. It's a comfort zone thing. When you're riding with a group of people, at 70 miles an hour and you're a bike length away from somebody, that's tight.
Yeah.
You want to keep yourself a little more.
This is a hotly debated topic too. Go ahead, Carlos. Were you going to say something?
As the former director of the Hog chapter, the safety officer of it, it was always our motto and our way that in every ride there was always a safety briefing.
Yeah.
Number one, and it was always a way to also introduce the new rider to everybody. We would say out of the 10 or 15 people, hi, we have 2 guests, we have this, blah blah blah, and they would make their comments accordingly. And it was always something that everybody stayed together. Everybody worked together. But again, that's up to the leadership to ensure that everybody has to work together, because our motto is always, no matter, and I've been almost with the chapter almost as long as, the oldest member of the chapter, and we still subscribe to that welcoming, embracing situation. Case in point, last Sunday we had a ride, and we did about, I think we did about 140 miles, 100 something like 50 miles, and it was this young guy who had a Sportster, and he was a very new Sportster. And he wasn't used to going, and we weren't going anything crazy, but just he didn't like highways. He didn't want to go 65, 70. He was nervous going on the curves and everything. And he was up in front of me. Now, me as the trike guy, and I was the tail gunner of the group, I got to make sure my tank doesn't hit this guy, and at the opportunity of the first rest stop, I made it a point to talk to him, to go up to him, say, hey, buddy, how's it going?
Yeah.
So like this. And the guy was like, oh, man, I'm nervous. I'm like, so what did I suggested to him, it's all right. You see the guy behind me? He's the tail gunner. He's in radio communication with the leader. He will tell the leader, slow down, stay together. Everybody, as long as everybody knows they had to start one day on 2 wheels, and they threw that leg over. They made a decision to ride.
Yeah.
And how that decision, everybody's comfort level. Some have beautiful, expensive bikes, and some have 20-year-old bikes. It doesn't matter. Some like to go. Some guys don't even change their lane because they started on the left side of that freaking lane.
Yeah.
And they said, I will never leave it. I've had to tell people, dude, you got to be flexible. You got to be adaptive. You can't be, and at the rest stop, the tail gunner then may give them a gentle conversation, say, we were in a lot of traffic. Could you just tighten it up? Are you okay with that? But we find out, and we don't want you to ride over your skill level. It's obviously that group didn't give a rat's ass, didn't give because they were a cohesive group that was just into their own. And you were the guy, look, the fact that you gave them the opportunity to ride with them a couple of times, giving them, you could try.
Yeah,
but you still see they weren't for you.
I mean, I rode with this group
from. But the point is, I think you should now come to the reality. Say, it was a good experience.
Yeah,
I'm alive. Let me walk away. Better to ride with 3 or 4 guys that you trust.
Yeah,
that they know how to work with. Like the Mike group, like that.
And I could be
And one more comment. I rode with a hardcore. I'm going to say there were 2%er, and that's a separate conversation.
Yeah.
These guys were hardcore. You know, these guys were don't mess with them. And I think I'm a good rider after 40 years, you
Yeah.
know. But let me tell you, I think my nuts came up because these guys were hard, fast, 6 inches away from each other, and
Yeah.
if you didn't ride like them, you were a punk. You know, that kind of thing.
That's actually,
you know?
I'm glad I'm really glad you brought that up, and I know we can put a pin in this as a topic for a future conversation, both technically from the standpoint of how fast bikes can be ridden, touring bikes and baggers like that these days. You know, the technology that makes that possible, as well as the culture that insists on it, like what you're describing, and that's, you know,
And I made a promise to say, you know what, I don't have to prove anything to
yeah,
anybody, you know, but I said, you know what, I don't have to ride with these people, and I
yeah,
drifted.
hardcore motorcycle clubs for Scott and anybody else's, our viewers, listeners, you know, riding side by side, not staggered at like speeds, you know, 85, 90, 100 miles an hour is expected. And to Carlos's point, if you don't have, you know, the intestinal fortitude to do that, then you are not considered among their credit. So, couple on that, I do think. I do think that's a really good topic, and Mike, you mentioned this too before about like speed and the different, you know, paces that groups go at. There's also a culture around like what everybody just described, that you have to ride really fast. And one last thing on that story, one of the guys who came over when I had this discussion with the club member, he said, he asked me, I one of the things I mentioned, and this is the whiny Sportster thing, when I mentioned that, you know, you guys, this guy that I'm talking to, he's got one of those Indian, you know, custom Chiefs that's like massive. Like, you guys hit the highway, you're doing 95 and you're gone in a fucking instant. This guy actually asked me if after talking about this for a while, if my speedometer was broken. Like, maybe I didn't realize that, you know, but basically his implication was that there's no way that everybody's going that fast. These guys don't realize how fast they're going. I know. I mean, I can show it. I'm like, I actually stopped in the conversation. I didn't know what to say. I was like, I can send you a video, you know, of my speedometer on 75, 80 miles an hour with the group, you know, looking like a dot gone in front of me on the highway. So, like, I know what's happening. And I think in defense on those bigger bikes, maybe, you know, you just don't realize it. You know, you're
Jay, one of the things, with a group, how many people was in that group? How many people? 10, 15 guys?
Yeah, on that day, yeah, it's usually, yeah, at any given ride, it's usually between like 10 to 15.
Now, there was no communication, right? Nobody had, it was
Some
just
of them are
standard,
communicating, but the tail gunner had to communicate by cell phone, and he had to pull over to use it.
Okay, they didn't really have communication. So what the problem is, and we have had this also, even though I think we are very safety conscious, we are really together in a knit group. What happens is the ride leader, he wants to think about 100 different things, and he's trying to get these guys going to a certain direction. But he should be, and we had learned over the years, because we were the old school there, hand signals, but you still don't know where the frick, you got a half a mile of guys trailing behind you. He's cranking at, let's just say, 65, 70. But, you know, and everybody's trying to race up, and that guy who's slow, suddenly that gap is longer, and he's racing like the Dickens to try to race up as that rubber band effect keeps on growing.
Yeah.
So the tail gunner is not talking to the guy to say, dude, you gotta slow down. We are leaving our buddy here, you know, behind. So, you know what? You got 15 minutes there, buddy. You know, the bottom line is you did the right move. You don't need them. You got to think of you make a decision every time you throw that leg over that bike, and that's the more important thing. Your safety paramounts everything, and it doesn't matter. You've been riding by yourself before, and all you got to do is find like-minded individuals who don't have to prove anything, because in an instant your life is over.
Yeah,
and like
I appreciate that, and that's I appreciate the feedback. Go ahead, Eddie. What were you gonna say?
You want to start your own group.
Yeah.
Go on Facebook. And, you know, like a loose organization of people that are relatively local.
Yeah.
And guys meet up on a Saturday or a Sunday. And the ones that want to ride a lot faster than you, they're going to cut you loose. They're not, because you're going too slow for them.
I am finding that there's, sorry, go ahead.
No, you would be surprised how many riders out there think like you.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go into a big group because they're going fast, because they're they feel their skills aren't good enough to be in a big group, right? And a three or 4 man group is very manageable and also can be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe start something like that, and then you guys can, work into that.
Yeah, that's a great idea, and it's funny that this journey has led me to find that there's a debate, about, and we'll put a pin in this for a future episode. We talk about speed and culture and tech around it, but I am finding that there are other folks that I don't want, even in a car, I don't want to go 85 90 miles an hour. I want to, I have a certain internal measure that's this is the speed I'm comfortable going. It doesn't matter how fast the thing can go or whatever. It's just so I think there are other people that think like that, and I get that it's so I do need to look more into that. But I know I'm pandering to the audience. I mean, does anybody think I should have done anything differently here, or any other feedback?
No, like I told you at the beginning, you got to ride to your comfort and skill level. That's it. That's what I tell everybody that rides with me. I said, if you feel like the group's going too fast, I'm going too fast, slow down.
Yeah.
And I'll look in the mirror. I'll see you're further behind. I will slow down so you catch up. The worst thing you could do is put yourself beyond where you're comfortable or your skill, and then you go down.
Yeah.
Or you have an extra trying to keep up with somebody else.
Yeah.
There's a follow-up to this guy that I was talking about in our ride, who was nervous. I talked to him, told him I gave him, said, okay, just be aware. Did you talk to the tail gunner? And then I went to the tail gunner. I spoke to him. He says, yeah, I've been watching him. I'm going to talk to him. And, and you could see they had a little chit chat. And then he adjusted it to ride so that when the ride leader is saying, well, what do we got ahead of us? There's going to be some twisties. There's going to be a straightaway. There's a roundabout. Let's do the U-turn. He said, okay. Went back to the guy. This is what we're going to do. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
And and then you could see that the speed was noticeably adjusted.
Right.
So he took the time to explain it to the guy to do that. And again, not everybody's going to take the time out. Not everybody's going to say, you know what, everybody rides a certain way. So you know what. You ride your own ride, and you event. One of the things that the guys does sometimes is that when he finds there's another new riders, and you still need a little help. We have offered over the years to say, tell you what, hey, how about anybody wants to just have somebody give you an eyeball as to how you ride. And you take about 4 or 5 beginners or 3 beginners. You take 1 or 2 seasoned guys as a front guy, lead guy, and say, okay, let's go and do an easy 20 miles one way and, see how you feel. Signaling,
like a coach.
Turning, passing. Yeah. And it kind of say, oh, what you do good. Did you put your feet down right? Were you dragging your brakes, blah, blah, blah. And that also helps in the confidence level.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of feedback that is helpful and constructive, like something you can absolutely use. And again, it all comes down to the group, and I think that I appreciate the feedback from everybody. I know we're getting up on our time here, and as usual, there's a lot to get to that we could talk about. And one of the things that we have to get back to, Eddie, you mentioned as we wrap up here, you mentioned having to stop to keep your bike from overheating at watering holes and local establishments. Is that you or your bike that's overheating?
Oh no, because I have a cheap cover for the rain.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If I've done 100 or more miles, I can't just put the cover on.
Yeah,
no,
same.
You can't.
Yeah,
if I'm going home and it's late or it's
you gotta wait. Yeah.
Sometimes it's I'm already getting ready to go to bed, and that after ride tiredness. Sometimes I stop and I have a Diet Coke at the local cafe.
Soft drink.
A soft drink, and then once it's a little cooler, I go home and I put the cover on. But I found out this past weekend from some of my riding buddies in Jersey that they make covers that can take the hot pipes.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
learned that the hard way in a few grills.
Yeah. Not to sound dumb, Eddie, but if you're stopping at a watering hole, getting a soft drink to cool off your bike, and then you're getting back on your bike and riding it again, doesn't it get hot again?
No, not if it, because the cafeteria where I consume said beverage is right around the corner. It's literally
short
a block away.
Scott, our motto is fill up the gas tank, but empty your bladder as often as possible.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that makes
sense.
Well,
we can talk about heat.
Like, it only overheats after, like, I feel like 15-minute ride or a 20-minute ride. That's
that makes a lot more sense.
It's a little bit too hot for the cover.
Although Jay, the old guy in me is thinking, Diet Coke at 8 p.m. That's a terrible idea. Like,
yeah,
I'm going to be up all night from
sometimes I ask for a decaf Diet Coke.
Well, you're young, so you can do that kind of stuff.
All right, well, let's talk about that. Let's make sure we add that for heat, because my butt was getting really hot lately, and everything else is cool. I don't know if it's my seat or if I need to look at different seat tech or it's engine or whatever, but.
Well, let me mention to the three of us, that those of us are, and I think this is a pin on that, as far as have you ever had, or can you get on your bikes, a check engine light code? And on a car, we know that when we see that check engine light, we're like sweating bullets already to say, oh my God, I'm 100 miles away and the check engine light, and you start panicking, and it's happened. It's happened to me. So we'll pin that, because I found that out. I was in a slow parade with about 40 guys yesterday, and let me tell you, the engine light came on.
Oh shit!
And the sweat was coming down. But one of the grizzled veterans, I mentioned to him my check engine light, and he looked at me with this surly look and with this gravelly voice. He said, it's your heat sensor. What's the matter with you? Just ride the puppy.
Yeah.
And I went back and you do various things to check the diagnostics. So let's pin that one
all
there.
Right. Well, we'll do that. We're owed a bike tech episode. So why don't we kind of lump this all together, mechanical and electronic tech, and we can bring that for our next episode. I appreciate you guys. I know we ran a little bit long here today, and I really appreciate that. Especially, thank you for letting me run my group riding scenario by you. It's informative to get your feedback, but also cathartic for me to share the story. So thank you guys. I really appreciate that. Before we wrap up, anybody got anything going on this week that they want to pimp or talk about before we wrap up? We'll go around the horn. Eddie, why don't we start with you?
Bike night is on Wednesday in Brooklyn.
All right.
And then I think I have a Sirens meeting, and then next Saturday I work at the Intrepid, so I think it's gonna be pretty cool to pull up at the Intrepid on my Harley.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. Get some pictures.
Eddie, is that the bike night? Is that at Indian Larry's, or what is that? Or is that
at Revzilla?
Revzilla, okay. Sweet. All right, very good. Mike, what do you got going on?
No, Carlos actually mentioned it. I have a check engine light. So I'll be probably doing.
All right, let us know how that goes. It's not just tighten the gas cap.
Tape over it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm also. It's funny. I'm actually pretty sure it's my heat sensor as well, but because it's my fuel injection light comes on, and it checks like 5 different things.
So it could be any of those.
Yeah, there's a way to tap it out, and the display will give you a code and narrow it down.
Yeah, we could compare that next time. A check engine light on a bike, check engine light on a car, and see how we both come up to the same diagnostic solution there. So, okay.
Good enough. Carlos, Scott, you guys got anything going on?
Check engine light on a snowblower. Is that possible?
Probably not, although you got me thinking that there should be different colors of check engine light, because it's a binary. It's on or it's off. Maybe it could be orange or red.
Maybe just want you to look at, check in and say, how you doing, buddy? Is that could be a courtesy
check. I'm just lonely. Just want you. I was going to grill a nice dinner tonight, Jay, but then you went on at length about how hot your butt is getting lately, and I've lost my appetite.
Yeah, we'll get to that next episode. So I don't know, I'm in the breeze. Everything else feels good. I got this Harley OEM seat. I may need to look for something aftermarket with some AAC in it.
Jay's hot seat.
All right. Well, once again, I thank you guys all very much for joining us on the show. Thank you again. I hope you guys all have a fantastic rest of your Sundays. We'll see you next time here on Old and in the Way, and that's it. Cheers.
Bye.
Peace,
Cheers.
everyone.
Great seeing everybody. Thank you.
Bye, saying ciao.